All right, today we're going to dive into the really fascinating, almost magical world of Milton Erickson. Now, this was a psychiatrist who totally changed the game when it came to therapy, basically by learning to speak a language that our conscious minds, well, they just don't really understand.
I mean, listen to that. Shut up with your conscious mind. Who talks like that? Well, Erickson did. He would often start with these really jarring, kind of confusing commands, and the whole point was to bypass that logical, resistant part of our brain. So yeah, let's get into this.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to look at who Erickson was, then we'll dig into this idea of an inner blind spot that he thought holds us back. After that, we'll try to figure out the language he was speaking and look at some of his, let's just say, surprising tools and see how he helped people rewrite their own stories. And finally, we'll talk about the power of his whole indirect approach.
So first up, the man himself. You see, Erickson had this core belief. He thought the real key to change wasn't about trying harder with your conscious mind. No, he believed it was all about tapping into the huge, untapped power of the unconscious.
So, what's the big problem he was trying to solve here? Well, it's a trap that I think we've all fallen into, right? You try to fix these really deep-seated problems using the part of your mind that is just completely wrong for the job.
Here's a perfect example. You know when you're trying to remember a name, it's on the tip of your tongue, and the harder you try to force it, the further away it gets. It's so frustrating. But then what happens? You give up, you start doing something else, and poof, 5 minutes later, the name just pops into your head. That's your unconscious mind still working on the problem.
And this isn't just some vague idea. It's a legitimate powerhouse. Get this. Some research suggests that this unconscious search keeps going at a rate of about 30 items per second, long after your conscious brain is thrown in the towel and moved on. That's incredible.
Okay, so if our conscious mind is kind of the problem, the gatekeeper that gets in the way, how do you get past it? Well, Erickson's big idea was to just stop arguing with it altogether. Instead, he figured out a way to speak directly to the unconscious.
And this is where it gets really clever. Just look at the difference here. On one hand, you have a direct command, like, you will not feel anxious. What does your brain immediately do? It says, oh yeah, watch me. It just invites an argument. But then you have Erickson's way. You can be surprised to discover how comfortable you can become. See, that's not an order, it's an invitation. It's way more intriguing. It sneaks right past that argumentative part of your brain and plants this little seed of curiosity.
So this whole philosophy led to this toolkit, I guess you could call it, of some of the most bizarre, creative, but shockingly effective techniques you've ever heard of. And they all had one single goal: to totally disrupt a person's old, stuck patterns of thinking. Just shake things up enough for a new idea, a new possibility to find a way in.
Okay, take the famous therapeutic bind. It's brilliant. So a patient comes to him with insomnia. He just can't sleep. Now, what does Erickson do? He doesn't give him sleeping tips. No. He tells him, okay, you have a choice. You can either stay awake all night, or you can get up and wax all the floors in your house. Suddenly, the guy is in a bind, right? The problem isn't, I can't sleep anymore. The problem is, I really don't want to wax the floors. All of a sudden, falling asleep becomes the easy way out, the welcome escape. It's like psychological judo.
You see, the key takeaway here is that these techniques, the bind, the shock, the surprise, they all serve one purpose. They're designed to break a mental logjam. It's like they interrupt that broken record playing in your head, those stuck thought patterns. And in that moment of interruption, that's what he called a creative moment. A little window opens up where a brand new solution can finally pop through.
All right, let's look at a full case study now, because this is where you can really see how all these pieces come together. It's an incredible story of healing that just shows Erickson's genius in action.
Okay, so here's the story. There was this brilliant young musician, but his career was in jeopardy because he developed this psychosomatic swollen lip. Nobody could figure out why. Turns out, he grew up with a really domineering father who would always tell him, none of your lip. So what was Erickson's treatment? For 9 straight months, his only instruction was to let the patient come into his office and just scream profanity and insults at him. Then one day the patient yells, if you were my father, and he just stops cold, terrified. Erickson calmly says, but I'm not your father. And that was it. That was the breakthrough. The patient finally understood all this repressed anger he had, and the lip started to heal.
And Erickson's explanation was so simple, really. He said, you have given me all the lip you never dared to give anyone else. By providing this safe space for all that pent-up rage to come out, The unconscious mind didn't need the physical symptom anymore to express that emotional pain. He was finally free.
So, after hearing all these strange but kind of powerful stories, what's the big takeaway here? What can we learn from all this? Well, it really comes down to a fundamental shift in how we think about change itself.
You see, Erickson didn't see himself as some kind of mechanic who's there to fix a broken part in a person. He saw himself as more of a gardener. His job wasn't to force the change, but to create the right conditions, the right soil, the right light, for the person to unlock their own inner resources, their own potential to heal. And often, the healing would happen in a way the person never, ever saw coming.
And this is why this matters to you, to all of us. It suggests that when we're facing our own challenges, maybe pushing harder isn't the answer. Maybe a direct, forceful approach just creates more resistance. The real secret might be to stop trying so hard, to get our logical, conscious mind out of the way for a bit, and just create a space for our own unconscious wisdom to step up and do the heavy lifting.
And that really leaves us with a pretty provocative question to think about, doesn't it? If our problems, our symptoms, are sometimes just stories that our unconscious mind is trying to tell us, what new story is waiting inside of you, ready to be written, if you could just learn how to listen in a slightly different way?